Her auntie all these years was unable to have a child for the king. What this means is that Nonye's time in the palace was now numbered. Once upon a time, there lived a very beautiful woman who got married to a wealthy king. Her name was Nonye, and she was from a very poor family. Nonye and her family lived in extreme poverty until one fateful day when Nonye's path crossed with that of the wealthy king. Nonye won the heart of the king instantly, and the king, despite her poor background, decided to make her his one and only queen. Nonye's parents and siblings were now over the moon as Nonye was crowned the queen of their village. They were overjoyed at the fact that Nonye will finally bring them out of poverty. Little did they know that Nonye had other things planned for them. One day, this was a few months after Nonye was made queen, her father and mother never saw or heard from her. They were so worried as they were languishing in poverty, despite the fact that their daughter was now the queen of their village. They then decided one day to pay Nonye a visit in the palace. Nonye's mother and father were excited to see their daughter the queen, but this feeling was not mutual as Nonye didn't look excited to see her parents. She asked what they were doing in the palace, and her father and mother, shocked at her question, revealed that they were starving and needed some food and money. Nonye, instead of giving them food from the abundance in the palace, she ordered her guards to send her parents away from the palace. Nonye's parents wept as they journeyed back home empty-handed. They broke the news to Nonye's elder brothers, who could not believe that their sister, the queen, had abandoned them just like that. The next morning, Nonye's elder brothers, Ebuka and Ejike, furious at what happened to their parents the previous day, decided to visit Nonye in the palace. They waited for hours, but Nonye told her guards to inform them that she was too busy to see them. On their return, the whole family decided to hold a meeting, of which Nonye was invited, to reveal the reasons behind her actions, but Nonye failed to honor their invitation. Her family, on seeing this, arrived at the conclusion that Nonye did not want anything to do with her family again. They decided to forget about her whilst focusing on making ends meet. Many years later, Nonye's mother and father died, and Nonye didn't deem it necessary to change her wicked and selfish ways. Her elder brother Ebuka then fell terribly ill and was on the brink of death. His daughter Uwa, despite knowing how Nonye had refused to help them in the past, rushed off to the palace to seek for Nonye's help. She told the guards to inform her auntie the queen that her father, the queen's brother, was dying and needed some money for his treatment, but Nonye told her guards to inform Uwa that she didn't have any money to give. Sad and disappointed, Uwa returned home. Her father's condition worsened, and not long afterwards, he died of the sickness. News of his death reached Nonye, who began to plan a lavish burial for her brother. Her whole family was shocked to see all the preparations that were being made to bury Ebuka, who lived in abject poverty till he died. His daughter Uwa was so furious as she watched the lavish preparations for her father's burial. Unable to contain her anger, Uwa confronted the queen. "Why, Auntie Nonye? Why lavish preparations for my father's burial when you turned your back on us in our time of need?" Nonye looked at Uwa and didn't utter a word. This infuriated Uwa further as she made up her mind to become successful in life. Uwa began to take on several menial jobs in the village. She worked tirelessly to look after her family and never stopped working, even when she didn't feel like it. Uwa promised herself never to beg her auntie again. She knew that with hard work, she could bring her family out of poverty, so she made up her mind to do everything possible to give her family a good life. Uwa, after several months, got a job in a very big plantation in the village. Her pay was not so much, but Uwa looked after her entire family with the little that she had, and this gave her a sense of fulfillment, knowing that her family was no longer hungry. One day, whilst Uwa was working in the plantation, she met a young handsome man named Odinaka. This was Odinaka's first day at the plantation, so he approached Uwa to ask her some questions. Uwa answered all his questions intelligently, and Odinaka in that moment piqued an interest in her. Odinaka was amazed to see a woman work so hard, so one day he approached Uwa to ask why she worked so hard in comparison to other women at the plantation. Uwa, on hearing his question, broke down in tears as she narrated her painful story to Odinaka, who told her that everything in life happens for a reason and that Uwa should view every disappointment as a blessing. Odinaka understood how painful it was to have a rich auntie who has refused to help despite being in a position to, so he urged Uwa to focus on building her own wealth, as this is the surest path to independence and success. Uwa took Odinaka's advice to heart, and over the years, she and Odinaka worked together and became so close. Not long afterwards, Odinaka asked Uwa to marry him and they got married. Odinaka was not wealthy, but he was a hardworking man, filled with so much passion and wisdom. One day, Uwa and her husband Odinaka were returning home from the plantation when they heard that the king of their village was dead. Uwa, although angry at her auntie Nonye, felt a wave of sadness for the death of her auntie's husband the king. Her auntie all these years was unable to have a child for the king, resulting in the king dying without an heir. What this means is that Nonye's time in the palace was now numbered, as the chief priest would have to consult the gods to choose a heir to replace the dead king who died without a son. Nonye at this point was devastated, as she could not believe that her husband the king died without leaving her any wealth. The thought of being sent out of the palace terrified her greatly, as she had nowhere else to go. Nonye failed to look after her family all through her years as queen, so facing them after all these years was something she could not imagine doing. After the king's burial, Nonye was urged to leave the palace to enable the chief priest cleanse the entire palace for the next king whom the gods were yet to choose. Nonye, sad and dejected, returned to her family house, which was old and in an extremely poor condition. The once mighty queen now faced the reality of her past actions. Everyone was shocked to see Nonye as she pleaded for their forgiveness. This was shocking to her family, who never believed that life would humble Nonye in such a way. They all forgave her, but did not want anything to do with her. Nonye began to live like a stranger in her own home, as everyone kept away from her. A few days later, the chief priest of the village visited Odinaka's home to inform him that the gods had chosen him to be the next king of the village. Odinaka was so shocked to hear this, as he never envisioned that he would one day rule their village. Soon, the news spread around the village, reaching the ears of Nonye, who could not believe how fast the tables had turned. Nonye regretted all she did and wished she acted better in the past. Her brother's daughter Uwa, who she wronged in the past, was now the new queen, her replacement, and Nonye lived all her life regretting all she had ever done to Uwa. Uwa and her husband Odinaka were so excited to move into the palace. They used their position to empower members of their family, including Nonye, the former queen, and the whole village loved them for their kind heart. Nonye spent the remaining of her days lonely and in regret, reflecting on the consequences of her actions. The once mighty queen was now an outcast in her own community, overshadowed by the kindness and generosity of Uwa, the new queen. The lesson to be learned from this story is that family bond is extremely important. We should learn never to neglect our family in times of need, as this could lead to possible regrets in the future. Also, never dabble in fetish practices, as it has a way of coming back to bite you. The story also teaches us that no matter how powerful or wealthy one becomes, it is essential to treat others with kindness and compassion, as true wealth lies in the richness of one's character and the compassion shown towards others. I hope you enjoyed the story. Like, subscribe and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.